Welcome to the Everyday Words Podcast, your daily dose of etymology and vocabulary.
So imagine standing under the absolute harshest fluorescent lights of a pharmacy in a totally foreign country.
Oh, that sounds like a nightmare already.
Right. You are running a fever, your head is just pounding, you're sweating through your clothes, and suddenly your brain completely deletes the word for pain.
Oh, wow. Just blank space.
Exactly, just total stag. You know the word perfectly in your native language, obviously. But here, standing across from a pharmacist who's just staring at you, waiting for an explanation.
That is true panic setting in.
Yeah, it really is. And today we aren't just looking at like a standard list of medical vocabulary. We are jumping into a stack of source material from some English learning programs.
Specifically, we're looking at excerpts from sessions called When You Feel Sick and Everyday Words, talking about health and recovery.
Right. But the mission of this deep dive goes way beyond just, how to ask for an aspirin.
We're exploring the intense vulnerability of being physically sick in an unfamiliar place.
Yeah, and we are going to examine the actual neurological mechanics of cognitive burnout. Plus, we'll explore this highly effective, completely guilt-free strategy the text provides for learning when your brain feels, well, completely fried.
It is such a vital topic, honestly, because it strips away that whole academic illusion of language learning.
Right, because usually we think of learning in a very controlled environment.
Exactly. You picture a quiet desk, a nice notebook, maybe a warm cup of coffee.
Very aesthetic.
Right. But sickness doesn't wait for you to be sitting at a desk. When you are ill in a new environment, language just stops being an intellectual exercise.
It instantly becomes a matter of basic physical survival.
Yes. You are no longer trying to, pass a test.
Yeah.
You are literally trying to advocate for your own body when it's failing you.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can get to the cure for a tired brain, we have to look at how we even articulate being physically unwell in the first place.
Which is trickier than it sounds.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because the source material highlights some very specific phrases that English speakers use when they're under the weather. And when you look closely at them, they are quite bizarre.
Yeah, the characters in the text, Sarah and Mark, they begin by describing a scratchy throat.
And they define it so vividly.
They do. They talk about it feeling dry and how it hurts just to talk or to swallow water. It is a highly evocative, really sensory word.
It's the perfect word for it, honestly. It sounds exactly like what it feels like. You don't just have a sore throat.
You feel like someone took actual sandpaper to the delicate tissue in the back of your mouth.
Exactly. Sandpaper. But then they move on to a phrase that, honestly, it made me stop and just reread the page.
Oh, the catching a cold bit.
Yes. They talk about the symptoms of catching a cold. They detail the runny nose, the coughing, the need for a whole box of tissues sitting right there by the bed.
The classic symptoms.
Right. But think about the verb they're using there. Catching.
It is a bit weird when you really isolate it.
It's so weird. In almost every other context in the English language, catching is an incredibly active, coordinated verb.
Yeah, you catch a baseball.
Right. You catch a train, you catch a falling glass before it hits the floor. It requires intense focus and effort.
It implies a deliberate intent. It implies you, reached out and grabbed it.
Yes, but getting sick is entirely passive. It's completely unwanted. You are just standing there, living your life, riding the bus maybe, and the illness just happens to you.
You are the victim of the cold, not the catcher of it.
Exactly. It highlights how contradictory language can be when you break it down to its literal roots.
Yeah.
Why do we say we actively caught something that we were desperately trying to run away from?
Well, that paradox brings us right back to the emotional reality presented in the text.
How so?
The source material explicitly acknowledges this strange dynamic. One of the speakers notes that nobody likes feeling sick, obviously, but finding the exact right words at a pharmacy or a doctor's office in a new country can be genuinely scary.
Oh, absolutely. It
You
makes
are-
people intensely nervous.
Right, because mastering this specific vocabulary, describing a fever where your body temperature goes up, your head aches, and you feel profoundly weak, it's really about regaining a sense of agency.
Because the illness has already taken your physical agency away.
Precisely. When you are sick, your biology is running the show. You are shivering, you are coughing, you have lost control.
You're at the mercy of the virus.
Yeah. And if you also lack the words to explain what is happening to you, you lose a secondary critical layer of control.
You are stripped of your safety net.
You really are. You are essentially reduced to the vulnerability of a toddler, unable to articulate where it hurts.
That is a terrifying feeling.
So learning how to say, I need a box of tissues, or I have a fever, is fundamentally about reestablishing a perimeter of safety when you are at your absolute most physically compromised.
That makes so much sense. But
Yeah.
getting the vocabulary right at the pharmacy is really only the first hurdle.
Right. The real work starts when you get home.
Exactly. Let's say you survive those awful fluorescent lights. You manage to articulate your scratchy throat, you interact with the pharmacist, and you get your treatments.
The text details a few options here.
Yeah, maybe you get some small pills, or perhaps you get that sweet cough syrup.
Which, by the way, the text notes is a very divisive flavor.
Oh, highly divisive. Some people absolutely loathe the artificial sweetness of cough syrup and vastly prefer natural comforts.
Like hot tea with lemon and honey.
Exactly. But regardless of the treatment you choose, you go home. The physical crisis of the pharmacy is managed. You are back in your room.
And this introduces an entirely new problem.
Right, because the ultimate medical advice given in the text is universal. Sleep is the best medicine.
You must stay in bed. Your body requires stillness to heal.
But what's fascinating here is how the text immediately pivots from the physical symptoms of the cold to a very deep, almost insidious sense of psychological guilt.
Yes, this was the part of the text that hit me the hardest, too.
Mark, one of the characters, he explicitly admits that when he stays in bed to sleep off his illness, he feels guilty.
He says he feels like his brain is being lazy.
Right. Lazy because he isn't actively practicing his English. He is lying there, literally punishing himself mentally while his body is desperately trying to heal physically.
It's heartbreaking, really. He is recognizing that the drive to improve, that drive to master this new language, has completely overridden his basic biological cues.
It's like the language learning has morphed from a tool of empowerment into a relentless taskmaster.
It makes me wonder about the paradox of the modern learner.
What do you mean?
Well, is this guilt just a side effect of learning a new language, or are we looking at a symptom of our modern obsession with constant productivity?
Oh, that's such a good point. We live in an era where we gamify all of our self-improvement.
Exactly. We track our daily language streaks on our phones. We track our sleep
To
scores.
monetize our hobby.
Yes. It feels like we've taken the mindset of the Industrial Revolution, like the factory assembly line, and applied it to our own cognitive development.
Does a sick day just feel like a moral failure now?
We have absolutely conflated stillness with laziness. In the context of modern learning, especially with all the apps and the daily notifications, there is this pervasive myth.
The myth that if you aren't actively grinding, you are falling behind.
Falling behind the algorithm, exactly. The text captures how this modern productivity guilt infects the recovery process.
The learner feels that even when their hardware, their physical body is compromised, their software, their brain should still be running at maximum capacity.
But the brain is part of the physical body. It isn't some separate cloud server that operates independently of a fever.
That's such a crucial point. If you force yourself to study complex grammar while your immune system is actively fighting off a virus, you are heading for a complete system crash.
Which is exactly why the source material introduces a very real cognitive phenomenon to explain this wall you hit.
Right. They call it language fatigue.
Yeah.
So what is actually happening in the brain when we hit that wall? Because it feels very different than just being sleepy.
It is entirely different. Think about operating in your native language. It's like driving a car with an automatic transmission.
Okay, you don't really think about shifting gears?
Exactly. You just press the pedal and go.
Yeah.
Your brain uses very little working memory to process the words.
But operating in a second language?
It's like driving a complex manual transmission through heavy city traffic.
Oh man, that is stressful just to think about.
Right. Your brain's executive function has to manually translate, check the grammar, consider the syntax, and produce the sound for every single sentence. It is incredibly energy intensive.
You are constantly riding the clutch.
Yes. And your brain runs on glucose. When you are sick, your immune system demands massive amounts of energy to fight the infection.
So your brain and your immune system are suddenly competing for the exact same finite resources.
Exactly. And language fatigue is the moment your brain simply refuses to allocate any more energy to that manual transmission.
The executive function just shuts down.
It does. The words literally turn into meaningless shapes on the page.
So if your brain refuses to shift the gears, and trying to force it just causes all this overwhelming guilt and exhaustion, what is the alternative?
Well, the text introduces what they call a secret remedy for this exact burnout.
And they're very strict about it.
They are. The remedy is to watch a favorite childhood movie or a happy cartoon in English.
And we really have to emphasize the rules of this remedy because the boundaries are what actually make it work.
The don'ts are non-negotiable?
Do not read a textbook. Do not look at a vocabulary list.
Yep.
You are instructed to just lie on the sofa, put on a movie that you already know perfectly by heart in your native language, and simply change the audio track to English.
Just let it play.
Now wait, hold on. Let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Okay, go ahead.
If the modern learner feels guilty because they aren't working, how does zoning out to a cartoon not trigger the exact same guilt?
It's a fair question. Like, if I'm just lying there half asleep, not actively translating anything, am I actually learning? Isn't this just a clever loophole for being lazy?
It totally feels like a loophole, I'll give you that. But it is actually deeply rooted in cognitive science.
Oh, so?
It relies on a mechanism the text explicitly calls passive listening. Going back to our computer analogies, when you watch a new, unfamiliar movie in a foreign language, your brain is trying to stream a massive high-definition file over a weak connection.
Oh, and it's constantly buffering.
Yes, it is struggling to understand the plot, track the characters, and translate the words all at the exact same time. The cognitive load is immense.
It's completely exhausting.
But when you watch a childhood movie you already know by heart, it is like opening a file that is already completely downloaded to your hard drive.
Because your brain knows the hero saves the day.
Exactly. It knows the mouse escapes the cat. You completely remove the anxiety of the unknown narrative.
Oh, that makes sense. Your brain doesn't have to use any bandwidth on figuring out the plot.
So the working memory is completely freed up. Because the cognitive load of decoding the story is gone, the brain gets to completely relax.
But the linguistic environment is still present. Your brain is still absorbing the rhythm, the cadence, and the pronunciation of the English words.
It switches from active extraction to passive absorption.
Exactly.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. The text doesn't actually use computer analogies.
No, they don't.
They use this absolutely beautiful, really tactile metaphor. They say that watching this familiar cartoon in English is like drinking warm tea for your brain.
It is brilliant because it ties the cognitive remedy directly back to the physical remedy we talked about earlier.
It mirrors it perfectly. Earlier, we established that hot tea with lemon physically soothes the scratchy throat.
It coats the inflamed tissue.
And here, the familiar happy cartoon does the exact same thing for the fatigued mind. It literally coats the cognitive irritation.
You are resting on the sofa, you are letting your immune system do its job, but you are still gently keeping the linguistic door propped open.
It completely neutralizes the productivity guilt.
It really does. You are resting, but you are still, technically, learning. It is a guilt-free permission slip perfectly disguised as deep comfort.
It shifts the entire paradigm of how we view learning, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. We are so conditioned to view learning as a battle.
We attack the vocabulary list. We conquer the grammar rules.
We fight through the fatigue. But this text is gently suggesting that sometimes you don't need to fight the language.
Sometimes you just need to sit quietly on the sofa and let the language keep you company.
That's a great way to put it.
But sitting on that sofa recovering presents a new problem.
Of course it does.
The cognitive fatigue might be soothed by the cartoon, and the fever might finally be breaking, but you are still physically alone.
Sickness is inherently isolating.
It is. You are trapped in your room with your box of tissues completely disconnected from the world outside.
Which is exactly why the source text introduces a fascinating interactive element right at the end of the lesson.
The material doesn't just offer passive remedies. It actively attempts to build a community.
Yeah, the hosts of this English program speak directly to their audience and ask them to participate.
They ask their listeners to go into the comments section and type a single, simple word, health.
They explain that doing this proves the listener is focusing and engaging.
And then they ask a much more personal question. They ask the audience to share their absolute favorite comfort food for a sick day.
They ask specifically, do you prefer a hot bowl of chicken soup? Or do you prefer drinking lots of tea? And they want to know why.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we can see the psychology of micro-commitments at play here.
Definitely. Asking someone to type the word health isn't a rigorous grammar test.
No, not at all. It is a very low-barrier way to invite participation.
It is almost like a digital proof of life. When you are lying in bed, feeling isolated and miserable, simply typing one word connects you to a broader network of people who are doing the exact same thing.
It's like sending up a little flare from your sickbed. I'm still here. I'm still trying.
And the question about the comfort food takes it a step further.
It transforms the comments section from an academic forum into like a digital waiting room where everyone is sharing their home remedies.
It reminds the learner that they are not the only ones struggling with the harsh lights of the pharmacy.
They are not the only one battling the guilt of a language fatigue system crash.
And they are certainly not the only one who relies on a hot bowl of soup to just feel human again.
It takes the solitary suffering of being sick in a foreign language and turns it into a shared universal human experience.
It really takes the daunting, sometimes endless task of learning and anchors it in pure empathy.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
That's the big question.
We've journeyed from the very real vulnerability of navigating a pharmacy in a new language, where finding the word for a scratchy throat is literally an act of reclaiming your safety, to the overwhelming mental roadblocks of language fatigue.
We've seen how the modern obsession with productivity basically weaponizes our own recovery against us.
Making us feel guilty for simply needing sleep. But the source material gives us the ultimate antidote: passive listening.
The permission to lie on the sofa, put on that beloved childhood movie, and let the English audio act as warm tea for your exhausted brain.
The most important takeaway here is clear. You have to be kind to yourself when you are sick.
The guilt is not helping you learn faster.
Rest is not a failure of the process. Rest is a fundamental requirement of the process.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, this raises an important question I want you to mull over, building on that idea of comfort foods and familiar stories.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Think about that one childhood movie that you know perfectly by heart. The one where you know every single scene, every comedic beat, every musical swell.
We all have one.
Right. If you were terribly sick lying on your sofa and you watched that specific movie in a language you barely understood at all, completely foreign audio, how much of the emotional comfort would carry you through those unknown words?
That is fascinating. Would you still feel the warmth of the happy ending?
Exactly. It makes you wonder, when we are truly exhausted, does the healing come from understanding the words themselves? Or does it come simply from the deep, unspoken familiarity of a story we already know we love?
That is a beautiful thought to chew on the next time you find yourself stuck on the sofa with a box of tissues.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take care of yourselves, drink your tea,
Yeah.
and we'll catch you next time.